I wanted to punish myself as thoroughly as I could. I decided to have a vasectomy, but that wasn't enough. I wanted my last potent seed to be spent in a dead body. I made arrangements to have sex with a cadaver.
John Duncan is an American performance artist and experimental musician. He has created and performed many controversial performances and art installations throughout the years, but quite possibly the most controversial and polarizing piece he performed was 1980's Blind Date. This performance consists of John Duncan recording the audio of himself making love with a female corpse and then getting a vasectomy sometime after. He performed all of this in private, which is probably for the best. However, he would play this audio to an audience at various locations and art festivals. The audio is available on YouTube, and I'll link it in the description, and it is the version of the audio that I will be using as reference for this video. The audio begins with an unknown man detailing the debut of the performance art and the reactions to it. Then the audio continues with John Duncan explaining the reasoning for doing this art. Apparently, the art performance is meant to demonstrate how men turn emotional pain into rage, often towards themselves. John Duncan continues by saying the idea came when his relationship ended, in which he says he was deeply in love with his past partner and felt that he was a complete and emotional failure because of the end of the relationship. Duncan then thought to punish himself as much as possible. He came to the idea of a vasectomy, but thought that was not enough. So like many other people, Duncan wanted his last potent seed to be in a dead body. I'm not sure how you even come up with that, but anyways, apparently Duncan visited many sex shops in the hope that they would be able to provide or give him information as to where he could get a body. However, he says that he was thrown out of all of them. He then met a man who set him up with a mortician's assistant in Mexico. He paid the man $10 for what I assume to be the mortician's assistant's number. He then would pay $80 to the mortician's assistant for 1 hour with the body. He was ordered not to take any pictures or film during the hour. He drove to the border town and bought a room, then phoned the number he was given. The assistant would then go to Duncan's room, where they both went to a mortuary where he was taken to a workroom. He took the $80 and left Duncan in the room with the corpse. He describes the corpse as being a woman in her mid-30s with no disfigurements, lying on a table covered with white paper, and he then had interactions with the body. As for the audio, like one commenter says, this dude paid $80 to desiccate a corpse and his own soul, but he left the recorder in a field on a windy day. So yes, the audio sounds like wind. However, if you listen closely, and I mean maybe you shouldn't, you do hear some disturbing things. Like one commenter noticed, you do hear cars passing by, which begs the question, what creepy and disturbing things are happening that we pass by each day without knowing? But even more disturbingly, you can hear what sounds like the table rock and the white paper that Duncan mentioned being crinkled. As you know, the man is making love to a corpse on top of it. Even more disturbing is sometimes you can hear Duncan moan, such as around the 9-minute mark. Yes, the actual audio of the quote-unquote performance without the intro is about 13 minutes. And yes, I did listen to the entirety of the audio, so please, you can thank me by liking the video and subscribing. Please. I really needed a shower after this one. Continuing with more depravity, I say that around the 14-minute mark, you can hear Duncan get faster with his act. And probably the most disturbing part about it all is that around the 28-second mark, you can hear Duncan begin to moan and breathe more aggressively. And it sounds like he climaxes around the 14-minute, 45-second mark. So yeah, it's unknown if he wore a condom, but as mentioned, he wanted his last potent seed in a dead body. So, take that as you will. To complete the performance, Duncan would get a vasectomy 6 weeks later, and there's even a photo of him getting the said vasectomy, which I will show, but I'll censor it. This radio broadcast of Blind Date was released on cassette as part of Duncan's Pleasure Escape, where Blind Date was on the A side of the cassette and the track called Move Forward on the B side of the cassette, which is just hardcore adult audio and Jim Jones / People's Temple's audio spliced together. Important to note is that the cover of this release is a naked woman's torso. However, it is important to note that the photo is not of the dead woman in Blind Date, as cameras and video were not allowed, plus the booklet has more photos of JAV, so it is likely that this photo is probably from a JAV. Some have speculated that Duncan did not actually commit the act of making love to the body. However, I'm on the side that believes he did, did. As if you see the other extreme performance art Duncan did, it seems like this is right up his alley. The identity of the woman nor cause of death has ever been identified, and the woman that broke Duncan's heart has also never been identified. After doing the act, Duncan did not cry on the drive back. Obviously, Duncan got backlash for this piece. Apparently, the feminist network in Los Angeles attempted to ban his work there, and some of his close friends turned against him. Apparently, he got threats to send him to prison, and his performances were often canceled once they were aware of Blind Date. Eventually, Duncan would move from the US to Japan, which he lived there for 6 years. During his time in Japan, he would make a series of commercial adult videos under the name of John C. Duncan would create experimental adult films and even soundtracks to them. Apparently, many people hated them because they were expecting an adult film to goon to, but got an artistic erotic film with dominant female characters instead. These were still adult films, more akin to pink films of the time, which are softcore adult videos with plots that some famous Japanese directors got their start in, such as Cure director Kiyoshi Kurosawa. A little off topic, but kind of funny, was that Duncan would start a pirate radio and television broadcasts with a portable custom-made transmitters built by Duncan himself. He would transmit illegally from apartment block roofs in central Tokyo and an abandoned US Army hospital near Sagamihara. He would then re-edit the adult films and broadcast them to this pirate transmission. He would limit his transmission to 12 minutes in order to avoid the police. He has yet to meet anyone that actually saw the broadcasts. I mean, can you imagine watching TV then suddenly cutting to an experimental adult videos with shortwave music? If it was recorded, I think Max Headroom would have major competition for the most intense broadcast intrusion. In 2001, Duncan was awarded the International Artist Studio Program in Sweden residency. 2 months into his residency, the IASPIS revoked it after learning about Blind Date. Through a legal battle and then recommendation of other artists, Duncan completed the residency and received cash compensation that was more than he was promised. Now the big question is, what was the point of this performance? To quote Duncan, "To torture myself physically and psychically. There was nothing erotic about it. There was no pleasure involved. It was not an act of self-indulgence. I felt that I had failed at love and decided to torture myself, to punish myself as much as I possibly could. I had this focused determination to suffer." According to an interview with Duncan, he wanted to show what can happen to men that are trained to ignore their emotions, and that the recording was made to render any further self-torture of this kind, especially psychic self-torture, unnecessary for anyone to perform as a creative act. So like most art, you should interpret this any way you like, but Duncan has his own meaning. Now as to what I think of this, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, if I had a friend that did this performance, I probably would stop talking to them because of how immoral it is. What I think Duncan fails to explain in this performance is the woman herself. That was a woman that was alive and had a life and most likely a family. And knowing Hispanic torture, I assume her family and herself were religious and probably wouldn't want their bodies to be desecrated like that. For instance, Salo, for example, I wouldn't disown my friend for making that film because it is fiction. Everybody in the film consented to the things they portrayed. This performance is just what it is. I really don't see Duncan's interpretation. It's just an act of, necrophilia disguised as performance art. For example, you can't kill someone and say there's a bigger meaning to it and call it performance art. You're just a murderer. And Duncan is just a necrophiliac, in my opinion. Obviously, I don't believe the audio should be banned, but maybe the Mexican police should have investigated Duncan. One thing that came to mind for me personally is the fact that I bought Jeffrey Dahmer's fork, and surprisingly, none of my friends stopped talking to me because of it. Even though I believed I went too far in purchasing it so much as to selling it. Surprisingly, some of my friends were ready to stop talking to me when I told them I was going to use a Ouija board. So I guess that says a lot about religion and ghosts in America, I guess. Anyways, thanks for watching. Please don't be weird. I love you. Like and subscribe.